we begin with the fact that he has completed his training and he was supposed to go to Iraq. But for some inexplicable reason, they announced to the entire world where he's going and when. Now that seems like a bit of folly, doesn't it? If you're going to send the Prince of England so that he can go at least play like he's a soldier, seems like you should not undercut him with announcing his position. I feel like any bonehead could have figured that that wasn't a smart decision, but anyway, they announced it. Well, that leads to all kinds of issues, because there's a huge public reaction, and his description of the public reaction is annoying to me because it's very clear we can do nothing to please this man. He says that the country was divided. He says, public reaction was peculiar. Half of Britons were furious, calling it dreadful to risk the life of the Queen's youngest grandson. Spare not, they said. It's unwise to send a royal into a war zone. It was the first time in 25 years that such a thing had been done. Half, however, said bravo. Why should Harry get special treatment? What a waste of taxpayers' money it should be to train the boy as a soldier and then not use him. If he dies, they said. So I guess there's no reaction that will please you. If they want to spare you, you're mad about that because you think that you should have the same rights as everybody to live the life you want to live. So you're mad at that. But if they say, go out and be a regular individual, you're mad about that. Like, you don't want to be happy. You want to find the hole in anybody's opinion of you so that you can, curl up in that hole and rock back and forth and feel sorry for yourself. Okay, so he goes on to say that because they had announced it, now there's all these threats on his life. And there's all of these insurgent leaders who are coming out and making threats against his life, saying they can't wait to kill him and they can't wait to zero in on him and take him down, and that they'll have special snipers out just for him. And so he's really worried about this. He's worried about what this will do as far as them deciding to take him out and if he'll be able to lead his men the way he had originally planned to do it. He's also worried about what Chels is thinking, but he's not that worried about it because Chels has disregarded the internet and the news since she started dating him. She could not take the scrutiny, and so she just ignores the news. Well, good for her. Shouldn't we all? And so there it is, swinging the balance. Will he get to go or will he have to stay? Well, as it turns out, they decide, we can't put you out there risking everybody's life since the terrorists clearly hate you, so we're going to have to call it off. He says that once again, because the press made so much of him going out, if they had just, not kept chewing on and on this little bit of information about the fact that the insurgents were so angry about it, if they hadn't kept reporting about that, if they had just let the story lie, he might have had a chance to go, but they just kept whipping everything up into a fury. And so now that means that his opportunities have been taken away from him. Once again, the press has robbed him of his rights. And so he's just devastated, angry, frustrated. He feels like everything he's ever wanted, they've just snatched right out of his hands. Just as he was about to take a bite of the cookie, the bully came and took it from his hands. But he can't go. I mean, the army's just like, no, you cannot go. This is not an option for you any longer. To send you out there would not only be a danger to your life, but to the lives of every single individual around you. What if the sniper misses you and hits the guy who's standing next to you? So clearly, they've made clear threats against you. You cannot go. So he's devastated. And he says, Pa went out and put out a statement that said that I was disappointed. But the truth is I wasn't disappointed. I was devastated. Because here was my time to shine. It's the only thing I'd ever been good at. So he's upset again. And he says that the press continued to run the story that he had manipulated his betters and that he had gotten them to release him from his duties because truly he was a coward. It wasn't that there was any threats. No. This boy's a coward and that's why he doesn't want to go. That's what he says the press said. Okay, well, all anybody's going to do is see the mounting threats by the enemy that, anyone can put two and two together. This is not wise. He cannot go. This isn't a big plot against you. If you really care about your men, like you continually say, I just cared so much, well then do what's best for them. Step out of the way and let somebody... My real concern was that the guy that replaced me wasn't going to be up to par. I was the one who knew what to do. And if they get somebody else, what if he's not trained sufficiently? Well, he just came through the same training you did. And presumably he might be better since he was awake during all the parts about military strategy. Okay, so then he says this, and I'm just like, oh, this is the ultimate eye roll. So the whole time you're just like, you're just playing soldier. Then he says, I pondered quitting the army. What was the point of staying if I couldn't actually be a soldier? How do you just quit? See, I'm just like, you are living in a fantasy world. Anybody who signs a contract with the military, you don't just get to be like, you know what, guys, I'm done. Peace out. I've had my time. It's like, no. You fulfill that contract whether you like the situation or not. So they've got to have some kind of work for you to do, right? But, he didn't get to do what he wanted to do. So I guess he just hangs out until they say, hey, we've got some work for you. I mean, it doesn't seem like he's going into work. It doesn't seem like he's got anything to do. So he decides, I'm going to go see Chelsea in Africa. Can't go to Iraq. I guess I'll go hang out with my girlfriend. So he goes and he talks to Chelsea. And he says, look, I just don't know what to do because I wanted to be a soldier, but they won't let me. And she's like, well, this is unfortunate because I know how much it's meant to you. And she really believed in the mission of the war. And she felt like it broke her heart that he was hurting so badly. But there was another part of her that was relieved that he was not going into a situation in which he was truly in danger, presumably. So in order to, okay, wait, so he's going to go to Africa in a little bit, but for right now, while he's trying to process the fact that everything he's ever wanted is always taken away from him by the bloody press, he decides that the only way to deal with this is, he'll go talk to William first and get William's opinion. And this again, it's like, okay, why are you always going to your arch nemesis looking for comfort in the arms of the enemy? He's all the day long being like, William, what should I do? I don't know what to do, William. Help me out of my troubles and all of the mental torment that I'm under. And he says that William had complicated feelings. And this is just so dumb. He says, I talked it over with Willie. He had complicated feelings as well. He sympathized as a soldier, but as a sibling, a highly competitive older brother, he couldn't bring himself to totally regret this turn of events. It's like, when your brother said, I'm glad you don't have to go, you heard him saying, thank God that this little whippersnapper's not coming up behind me taking all my glory. It's like, no, what he's saying is, I value you as a sibling, as a brother, as my friend. And sending you to a war zone in which people are being taken down daily by the dozen, I'm glad you don't have to do that. Okay, why does he always hear the negative? I don't understand. I don't understand why he can't, for 5 seconds, see somebody's good intentions for him. So William says, I'm glad you don't have to go. He's like, yeah, you would say that. You would say that, you highly competitive older brother. That's what the heir would say to this bear. And so, always seeing a problem when there isn't one. So in order to comfort his broken heart, he turns to the bottle. He says, not getting comfort from any quarter. He could have gotten comfort from William, and he could have gotten comfort from Chelsea if he had chosen to take it, but he wants to be boo-hoo, poor me, I never get anything I want. He says, not getting comfort from any quarter, I looked for it in vodka and Red Bull, and gin and tonic. I was photographed around this time going into and coming out of multiple clubs, pubs, house parties at wee hours. So he's just admitted that he's giving fodder to the press. And then we go on for a long diatribe against the press. He goes on and on and on and on and on about the demon press. It must have been Satan himself that was corralling these paps. And he says, I mean, you guys, I could not get through this page. I mean, underlining, highlighting, what? Like, I just could not believe how unbelievably petty this entire passage is about the press. He says, you guys, listen to this. I didn't love waking to find a photo of myself on the front page of a tabloid. Then don't go out. But what I really couldn't bear was the sound of the photo being taken in the first place. That click, that terrible noise from over my shoulder or behind my back or within my peripheral vision had always triggered me, had always made my heart race. But after Sandhurst, it sounded like a gun cocking or a blade being notched open. And then, even a little worse, a little more traumatizing, came that blinding flash. Okay. So you're trying to tell me that because you had to go through boot camp, you now have PTSD from the experience, and then every time you hear the camera click, it's like a gun cocking. I just want to say a deep apology to all the soldiers who truly have PTSD, who actually have a reason to be very traumatized by frightening sounds. The camera clicking and your connection to Sandhurst Military Academy boot camp causing you to have a traumatized reaction is the most laughable thing I have ever encountered in this book, and I have been laughing for quite a few pages now. Give me a break. He says, "Great, I thought. The Army has made me more able to recognize threats, to feel threats, to become adrenalized in the face of those threats, and now it's casting me aside. So the Army has wrecked me, and now they're throwing me to the wolves. They're casting me aside because I'm not exactly what they needed, exactly what they wanted, and now I have nowhere to go." What did you think was going to happen? You are a famous prince. You're one of the most famous princes in the world. Did you think that you were actually going to get to go and see some action? At what point did you actually tell yourself, this is a reality for me? I mean, you have imagined, lo these many years, that your mother is in hiding. Perhaps there's no fantasy or fable that you won't believe. Okay, so he says that he's in a really, really bad place because the Army trained him, wrecked him, and threw him to the side. Then he says that as he'd gotten older, the paparazzi had really become emboldened. I mean, those monsters knew no bounds. And he says that now they weren't just content to take his picture. Now they were jostling him and bumping into him and hitting him with their cameras and abusing him in the streets. And he said that they were all doing it because they wanted a better and better picture. That one paparazzi had sold a photo of him and made, 30,000 pounds, which he says, that's a nice down payment on a flat, mate. So I guess, I'm just over here paving the way for your wildest dreams with just one picture. And so he said if they could get a picture of him angry, they'd make, even more. They could probably buy a house with that kind of money. And so he said they were always baiting him and always trying to make him even more angry. And I mean, look, I think that the whole industry of the paparazzi is kind of a foul little affair. It's pretty dirty and rotten. But the world is full of prey and the preyed. I'm sorry to say it that way, but we live in a sinful and broken world. And in this world, there are going to be people who are going to monetize your wealth to line their own pockets. This is the way of the world, okay? And to be shocked by it, to be surprised by it, to be continually wounded by it, is a recipe for utter disaster. And I mean, the recipe has been baked and we're eating the pie. Here he is, completely ruined by the fact that he could not get past the fact that there are people who want pictures of him. And then he would give them everything that they ever wanted by being angry, by being frustrated, by being, falling down in the streets. Falling down in the streets and then being like, why would they want to take a picture of the prince doing that? Why would there be money in that? So and then remember how I said that he's like over here drawing analogies where I'm just like, you've got to stop it. He said, the Paps had always been grotesque people. But as I reached maturity, they were worse. You could see it in their eyes, their body language. They were more emboldened, more radicalized, just as young men in Iraq had been radicalized. Their mullahs were editors, the same ones who'd vowed to do better after Mummy died. And it's like, okay, you can't say that. Do you understand the work that these terrorists have done to destroy the world? Do you understand the wars that have been fought because of these terrorists? Do you understand? You were there. You watched 9/11. You watched people jump out of buildings. Their bones crushed all over the ground. And you have the gall to say that the paparazzi were like the same. They were as radicalized as the men who drove into the Twin Towers in a plane. Blew up buses in London. Terrorized the streets of Paris. Rain terror down on their own people, their own flesh and blood. You want to come to me and tell me that these photographers are the same thing? Like, all I can do is just say, you are beyond crazy. You have reached new heights of delusion. If you can make that parallel with a straight face, that is so beyond anything that I thought I would encounter in this book. It just doesn't even, and this too, for somebody who's this concerned about being politically correct in all things, it just doesn't seem politically correct to say that a photographer taking your picture is as bad as the terrorists. That this is equal to. And quite frankly, if not worse. It's like, no, they're not actually like the radicalized young men in Iraq. Actually, that's not how it is. Okay, so why don't you just calm down? Okay, so they're taking his pictures, and then he says this. And no one seemed to give a shit. I remember leaving a club in London and being swarmed by 20 Paps. They surrounded me, surrounded the police car in which I was sitting, threw themselves across the bonnet, all wearing football scarves around their faces and hoods over their heads. The uniform of terrorists everywhere. It was one of the scariest moments of my life, and I knew no one cared. Price you pay, people would say, though I never understood what they meant. Price for what? Okay, even you can't be this dense, Harry. Even you. The price for all the privilege, for the fame, for the money, for the experiences, for the education. This is the price price for what? Do you understand the life you lead? Do you understand what you have? Do you understand any of this? What could this mean? The price for what? Price for what? Please. Okay, so then he talks about that, what it eventually forced him to do, since he couldn't leave a club without being attacked by the paparazzi. He had to have one of his bodyguards pull the car up to an alley or an underground parking lot. He would climb into the trunk of the car. They'd shut the trunk, and he'd ride out of there like somebody in a coffin. Ride on home, and that was how he had to do it. And apparently his mummy had to do the same, so he'd learn from her. And he says that it felt like being in a coffin, but he didn't care. Okay, so dramatic. Where's the sick bucket?